Okay, next video that we are going to take a look at, the next topic is rationalizing the denominator. So for rationalizing the denominator, here's what you need to always remember. A quotient with a square root in the denominator is not completely simplified. So those are your keywords: denominator, square root, denominator, and simplified. So remember this. Square root in the denominator is not completely simplified. Okay, so for an example, well, before we get to the example, what you need to do in order to simplify, so to simplify completely, you need to multiply numerator and denominator by the given denominator. And then from there, so that's your first step, and then from there your second step is to simplify if needed. So 2 steps. So let's take a look at an example. So if I have 7 over the square root of 6, this is not completely simplified because we have a square root in the denominator. So what I need to do is multiply both my numerator and my denominator by the given denominator. So in this case, my given denominator is the square root of 6. So I need to multiply both numerator and denominator by the square root of 6. So this 7 times the square root of 6 is 7 root 6. Remember, the square root of 6 times the square root of 6 is the same thing as that. So this is going to give us 7 times the square root of 6 over the square root of 36. So now I need to simplify. The numerator is already simplified. We can't simplify that any further because the square root of 6 is completely simplified. The square root of 36, this is a perfect square. So that equals 6. So this right here is your final answer. All try one more example. We'll do one with some variables in it. So in this one, we have the square root of 3 over the square root of 5a. So in order to simplify this, we cannot have the square root in the denominator, so we have to multiply numerator and denominator by the given denominator. So we're going to multiply this by the square root of 5a and this by the square root of 5a. So this in the numerator is the same thing as doing the square root of 3 times 5 times a. And in the denominator, it's the same thing as doing the square root of 5 times a times 5 times a. Now if we multiply, we get the square root in the numerator. 3 times 5 is 15a over, in the denominator, 5 times 5 is 25, and a times a is a to the second power. If we look at the numerator, now we're at the simplify part. If we look at the numerator, this is already completely simplified. So this is going to stay the square root of 15a. This is the same thing as doing the square root of 25 times the square root of a squared. So you're basically simplifying each of those separately. So now we end up with the square root of 15a. The square root of 25 is 5, and the square root of a squared is a. So here you are completely simplified. So I'll give you a minute to take a look at that, and I'll highlight some important things for you. And if you're still having some troubles with this, no worries. We're going to post an extra video to kind of help you out, to back up everything that we talked about here, just so you can hear it from a different perspective.